Hi, Anthony. This is Linda. Thank you so much for your patience with me. I wanted to go over your essay, your literacy narrative, and give you a chance to make some corrections and get it back to me. First of all, I want to just say something about your overall organization. I definitely can see that you understand the chronological organization process as you tell your story about your football experience in Bothell. And you do have a sense of what an essay is supposed to look like, in that you have an introduction and body paragraphs and a conclusion. You also seem to understand the importance of transitions and controlling ideas in paragraphs, so that's good. I would say that your growing edge is probably with the sentence and language development. There's two kinds of English that we tend to use, especially if we're native speakers. There's our conversational English, which is a little bit more casual and has a lot of extra words in it, and we figure that out when we're talking to each other because we're used to that. That's kind of that style that we communicate in, especially as Americans. And then there is the academic standard English, and that's the English that we need to adhere to in a writing class such as this. And you've got a blend of both. Like, I definitely can see that you understand the academic English, but that you easily slip into conversational, especially because you're telling a personal story that has a lot of meaning to it. And so what I'm going to focus my feedback on is how you can correct the problems with the sentence structure and with the word choice, so that your essay will read with more clarity and more coherence for the reader. You want to think about your audience all along. So before I get into that, I do want to mention that in your final draft that you do need to add a heading, and that is your name, the date, the title of the assignment, and your teacher's name, okay? And then you also need to add a title to this paper, and then you'll have a completely formatted paper. Okay, so let's just start off looking at the introduction. So you're going to see several different colors on here. The green highlights represent the sentences that I feel best represent your topic of the entire essay. You might call this the thesis or your theme or the message for the reader. These are the pieces that I've kind of connected together. If I was playing Connect the Dots, these are the sentences that seem to relate to one another, that bring me to one big idea here in your essay. The things that are highlighted in red or circled in red are areas that I want you to particularly look at in terms of language and standard academic English. And then if anything is highlighted in pink, that means that I just love that sentence, or that it really struck me when I read it as kind of special and unique to you and your voice, and it's kind of that nice, just something really extra nice. These little blue marks represent areas where I'd like for you to start a new paragraph. And I think that is all of the marking that I did. When we have an introduction, we want to start off with something that really grabs the reader's attention by using dynamic words and language that is interesting and specific, and really kind of starts heading the reader into the direction that you want us to be thinking about. So when you use words like it's, to start off the very first sentence, it's that time of year again. First of all, that's very cliche, and second of all, it's not super inviting. It's not super interesting. I'll tell you where I found the most interest is right down here, when you started this Bothell Cougar Junior Football Association. I feel like that is, I don't think this essay is about the day when you started tossing the football with your family and your grandparents' yard, even though I know that was maybe the starting point of it. I feel like this essay is really about your experiences in being involved in this organization and with a particular coach, this coach, was it Bainter? And so because there's so many like problematic pieces in this paragraph, it's my recommendation that you may want to consider just getting rid of the entire paragraph with the exception of this last sentence. And if I were you, I would move this sentence down to the end of this paragraph so that this paragraph then becomes your introduction. I hope that makes sense. So this paragraph would read, the Bothell Cougar Junior Football Association signups are held once a season around March. I mean, that's a great first sentence. And then I would recommend that we don't tell the reader, whoops, oh shoot, it's going to look it up, sorry. I would just say hundreds of kids, maybe young and old, so you could switch that around. Hundreds of kids, young and old, and we'll take off the and. I don't think I can write and. It's hard to do without a stylus. And of all sizes, we're running all over the place, getting anxious to start. Now, it's not going to be their seasons. It's going to be to start the season as Bothell Cougars, okay? Because we want to make sure that we have the right. So this would be to start the season as Bothell, because it's just that season. To most people, so we want to specify, to most people, the signups, so instead of saying this, it would be the signups may not be a huge deal. And then instead of having the comma here, we don't want the comma here, we want to have the comma right before your conjunction, which is but, okay? So to most people, the signups may not be a huge deal, but in Bothell, it's a tradition, okay? So no comma. This may be, okay, so there's that conversational English again. I would say maybe this is like Bothell's commitment to football, or the Junior Football Association is why the Bothell High School football team is so successful. It's because they start training them young, right? So after waiting in line for hours, which sometimes felt like days, and I think you need to kind of qualify why it felt like days, because how old were you at that point? It felt like days when I was young, right? There I saw and met, so that's redundant. After waiting in line for hours, which felt like days, in my childhood memory or in my young memory. And then instead of, you don't need to say there, just you can just say I met, so we can take out all of that and that. I met my first coach that taught me the basics, okay? The basics of what? The basics of football so it would be, I met my first coach that who taught me the basics of football, right? Football throughout my first season as a Bothell Cougar, so you can keep the rest of that on, okay? I love this sentence. The first time I touched, and then the only reason I highlighted that is the football field, okay? I knew this was something I was born to do. Almost like a calling, Okay, now that's a fragment sentence. Okay. Playing football was almost like a calling. Okay, you got to put a subject and a verb in there. So playing football is the subject and your verb is was, okay? Was, and then the modifying is like a calling. I remember vivid memories. Okay, so that's redundant. I have vivid memories of the old Pop Keeney field that had, now you've got the word old in here twice, so you only want to say it once. I have vivid memories of the Pop Keeney field that had old AstroTurf with salt embedded in it. Only a few people, okay, you gotta specify, understand how crappy it was to play, not have, but to play on a salt field. Does that make sense? Okay, it literally got everywhere, and I love this part. In my pads, my mouth guard, the worst of all was on the mouth of my water bottle. Every time I tried to grab a sip of water, I ended up with a salty surprise. I love that part, such a great part. New paragraph. During my last season as a junior Cougar, now you don't say is where, you say I met, so we're just going to take out that is where. I met the father figure I never had, and I would put a comma there and say Coach Bainter, period. And then you're going to say Coach Bainter again, so you're going to, so I'm going to just circle that and say Coach Bainter always came down. Okay, you're going to just finish that sentence. Does that make sense? To the junior Cougar games to see who he would be coaching next year. He was, so now you don't have to say his name again, so you can say he was the head coach of the high school football team and had been for the past 10 years or so. Bainter came around to Bothell and complete, okay, so now that's that conversational English again, this part where you say came around. When Bainter came to Bothell, he completely changed the organization, the football organization, right? Rather than focusing on a player and his maybe football abilities, he focused on them as a whole person. He wanted to develop us as young adults going into the real world after athletics and academics. What a great sentence. And that's a controlling idea. Now, this is conversational. It's almost like you're filming a video, so we don't need that. During my junior year in high school, I learned one of the many lessons taught by Coach Bainter. I would maybe say after practice one day, we huddled together and then you're going to tell this whole story, and the story is perfect, okay? There's a couple of problem areas. I, of course, volunteered. You don't need to say of course. I volunteered to show I was dependable and trustworthy. However, my alarm in my body thought otherwise. Okay. However, I like what you're saying. I totally get it, but it doesn't work. That's that conversational English again, so it doesn't work for your reader. You're going to have to say something more specific like, however, my alarm failed to go off and I overslept. Okay? Or, however, my alarm and my body were not dependable and trustworthy. You know, but that's kind of what you're trying to get, instead of saying thought otherwise. Okay, and then you woke up late. And then right here when you have I knew it was coming, ... that's an ellipsis. We don't want to use an ellipsis like this. I thought I knew what was coming. Okay, you know what I said, I thought. I knew what was coming, period. And then you could just say extra laps around the track. And instead of an ellipses, you could use a colon. And a colon is, you know, the two little dots like that, okay? That would work better. I was mistaken. Bainter wanted me to understand the importance of dependable. And then you have this great dialogue here. And then instead of saying this, because that's unspecified, you're going to want to say something like, his words hit me deep. because I could sense a disappointment. Okay? Every time I've circled this, that means it's not specific enough. So you need to get in there and figure that out. Okay? What does this represent? All right? All right, I'm out of time, so I got to stop. I might have to erase some of this, but let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.